Matter protesters confronting presidential candidates, as we just saw with former Governor Jeb Bush. Many of the folks running for the White House are weighing in on the movement already.
What do you make of, some of these Democratic candidates are getting hit with the question, do Black lives matter or do all lives matter? You want to take a shot at that?
Well, first of all, of course, all lives matter. Secondly, Black lives have been diminished under Democratic policies. I mean, that's just true.
Well, of course, Black lives matter. But what I feel is that instead of people pointing fingers at each other and just creating strife, what we need to be talking about is how do we solve the problem in the black community of murder. There's a way to go that will lead to upward mobility as opposed to dependency. And let's talk about that way, and let's not be satisfied to be patted on the head and kept like a pet.
Senator Marco Rubio of Florida is a Republican candidate for president. Welcome, Senator. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you.
All right, thus far, I haven't seen this turn up at any of your events, but I would expect that all candidates are just waiting.
Look, this is a legitimate issue, and irrespective of how you may feel about how people behave, they have a First Amendment right to talk about this. But there is a legitimate issue here, and I've talked about it in the past. In fact, did work on it as Speaker of the Florida House. It is a fact that in the African American community around this country, there has been for a number of years now a growing resentment towards the way law enforcement and the criminal justice system interacts with the community. It is particularly endemic among young African American males that in some communities in this country have a much higher chance of interacting with criminal justice than higher education. We do need to face this. It is a serious problem in this country. There are a lot of different reasons for it. Not all of them have governmental answers, but it is something we need to confront because you have a significant percentage of our population that feels that they are locked out of the promise of this country, and the result is the anxiety and the frustration that you're now seeing expressed. Look, I personally know people who are professionals, who are African-American males. I have one friend in particular who's been stopped in the last 18 months, 8 to 9 different times. Never got a ticket for being stopped, just stopped. If that happened to me after 8 or 9 times, I'd be wondering what's going on here. I'd be upset about it. So would anybody else. I've seen it, not just in that instance, but even growing up. It has to be confronted, but it may not necessarily have a federal bill that we can pass that can fix all this. This is a problem our nation has to confront because it is real.
But do you understand? I don't have a full understanding of what these particular protesters want other than capturing the spotlight. Yeah. I'm not sure what they're asking.
Well, I don't think they have a detailed policy plan they want us to carry out. And as I said, some of it doesn't have governmental solutions. Look, if you're arrested, if you're a 19-year-old young minority male, African American or Hispanic, you're arrested, you're probably going to get, if you're don't have any money, you're going to get public defenders, and they're going to push you towards a plea deal because they're handling 1,000 cases. You now have a record, which means you are now stigmatized in the eyes of employers, in the eyes of your future, et cetera. So I do think that one of the things that we have to do at the state level and potentially at the federal level is look for ways to divert people early on in first offenses, obviously not a violent crime, so that you don't get people stigmatized early in life with a criminal justice record that basically begins to lock them out. And once you incarcerate someone, their chances of repeating offenses in the future begin to climb because you're now basically housing them with criminals that they're learning the tools of the trade, et cetera. We do need to address it, and it is particularly troubling among young African-American males. So I think there's a lot of different factors, and I've done some work on it. Here in New York, the Harlem's Children's Zone, for example, has an incredible record in a geographic area of improving outcomes. That is one aspect of a much broader set of things we need to do. I don't know if this group has a detailed policy agenda, but it is a legitimate issue.
Okay, let's pivot to foreign policy. That's what you're going to be talking about here in New York tomorrow. I know that you're going to hit on Iran and Cuba, 2 very controversial hotspots right now.
Yeah, and for me, they're controversial because of how this administration has handled it. You have 2 tyrannies, one in Iran, one in Cuba, both receiving significant concessions from this president, the most powerful and important country in the world, in exchange, in the case of Iran, for insufficient promises. Basically, an agreement that guarantees they will possess a nuclear weapon in the next 10 years, and the ability to strike the very city we're in tonight, New York City or the continental United States. In the case of Cuba, the Cubans have basically pocketed all these concessions the president has made, but they have been very frank. Nothing is going to change in Cuba. This weekend alone, they rounded up and arrested upwards of 90 or so dissidents. They beat people up on Sunday of this week. The Cubans have said flat out, not only is nothing going to change, but according to Fidel Castro, he says we owe him money for years of sanctions.
What do you make of that, saying that the U.S. should pay reparations to Cuba?
Obviously, it's ridiculous talk, but this is the kind of thing that they're doing. It's a message, the subliminal message they're sending to their people, because that was published in the official government newspaper in Cuba. That wasn't a message to Americans. That was a message to the Cubans. And the message is, I know you're going to have an American flag at this new embassy. I know you're going to see more American travelers coming here, but we're still anti-American. Don't get your hopes up. Nothing is going to change in Cuba. Basically creating a condition, before there's any change in the relationship, creating a condition they know will not be met as a new pretext for why Cuba is not opening up and so forth. The Cubans have been very frank. Nothing's going to change in Cuba. They've said that. And so Cuba's not going to change until Cuba changes.
Well, we know you have a lot more detail you'll lay out tomorrow morning in New York City. We'll be watching.
Thank you.
Senator, thank you.